Hey everyone, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, getting you set for week 1 of the college football season with 2 games in the books. Of course, in week 0, now everybody into the fray, including Pac-12 South favorite Utah as the Utes take on BYU. It's a Thursday night affair that we can all enjoy on national television. We got Shane Roberts coming in from Block U to help us break down the Utes. Shane, how you doing today?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Always appreciate the contribution from you. It's been a while, but great to see you. And Utah, certainly a team that we need to keep a track of. Not that we haven't in past seasons, but suddenly for the first time, a division champion, defending, and favorite to repeat and possibly win the entire thing in the Pac-12.
Yeah, Utah's pretty much bringing back almost the exact same team that won the Pac-12 South last year for the first time. Outright. They tied USC about 3 or 4 years ago. The media voted the Utes as to repeat as Pac-12 South champions, as well as actually win the Pac-12 overall. They have them beating Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game and advancing to, at minimum, the Rose Bowl. It's an exciting time here. I don't think there's been as much hype around the program as there's ever been. And it all kicks off this coming Thursday against BYU.
Absolutely, Shane. So let's start at quarterback where you've got a very recognizable face in Tyler Huntley. Of course, he missed the stretch drive after a very productive October where you guys beat. Huntley comes back. Jason Shelley was in the mix for the spot, but it's obviously Huntley's team, and you got to feel good about that situation at quarterback.
Yeah, Huntley coming, obviously, for most teams, I would say if you have a senior quarterback, especially one that's started for, this will be his 3rd season, you expect a lot of success underneath him. And Huntley he's extremely efficient. He's very smart with the ball. Not only that, his legs kind of give that extra dynamic that, just is so prevalent in college football. So having senior leadership there is a huge plus. He's won a lot of big games for the Utes, and hopefully, he can really get them over the top. They're rebuilding the offensive line just a little bit, but that seems to be settled. And of course, having his high school teammate and returning senior running back Zach Moss to his side should make things much easier on him as we traverse the Pac-12.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Shane, 1,000 yards for Zach Moss in only 9 games. He's obviously one of the very best in all of college football, not just the Pac-12. What makes him so special?
He just has kind of that extra level, the extra gear. He's hard to bring down. He's almost impossible to bring down. I think only Eno Benjamin in the Pac-12 had more yards after contact. I had to look at those stats again. But he's compact. He's kind of a bowling ball. But once he gets in the open field, he does have breakaway speed. And he has really good vision too. The very innate ability to cut back, make guys miss. He's just kind of the total package. He missed, the last 4 or 5 games last year dealing with a knee injury. He was on pace to have a 1,600 yard season. Having him back, there's rumors whether he might go to the NFL or not. Having him come back was a huge win for the coaching staff, and he'll be the bell cow for the Utes going forward.
Yeah, there were quite a few of those guys, especially on defense, that could have departed, but they're back. So that certainly sets you up well for another run at the Pac-12. Bertain Covey seems like he's been in the program forever. He caught 60 last year. If you want to round out the wide receivers for us and also answer the question for me, is it pretty much the offensive line with a veteran quarterback who's mobile? I understand they may want to run him a little bit more this year. Zach Moss, a premier running back, capable receivers, that offensive line might be the question.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. The offensive line's the question. They have guys with a lot of experience. It's just, filling out, kind of going from spring to fall, there was 2 openings on the line that it sounds like they've nailed down. So the only concern now is depth. As you would know with any college football team, depth is key. And you're probably going to lose a body or 2 throughout the season. How can I round out that offensive line? But all signs are that it's come together really nicely. Coach Whittingham actually said this is probably the first fall camp that he can remember that there was no bad practices. which I know golf fans really excited because he's very honest and he's very blunt. Um, but as always, the questions for the Utes usually fall on the wide receivers. Obviously, you mentioned Britton Covey. Yeah, he's been around for probably about 35 years now, and he's just a junior. But he's coming off a torn ACL that he sustained in the Pac-12 championship game last year. He says he's going to play this coming Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of wrap him in bubble wrap for the first 2 or 3 games until we get to the USC game to open Pac-12 play. But there's a couple of wide receivers to keep an eye on. Jalen Dixon, he's a sophomore wide receiver. He's just an absolute burner. He was behind defenses all the second half of last year. I'd imagine him just being the ultimate deep threat for the Utes. And another big name to keep an eye on is another sophomore. His name's Solomon Enos. He had a really nice kind of coming out party last year. Very big body. He's a 6'3", 205-pounder. Ultimate kind of possession receiver, can kind of go up and get the ball virtually everywhere. And the tight ends are going to be really heavily involved in the mix with Cole Fotheringham and Brett Keithy. Those are 2 very big targets, with the return of Andy Ludwig, who helped guide the Utes to their 13-0 Sugar Bowl championship season. And now he's back on campus, so we're kind of curious of what Andy Ludwig 2.0 looks like.
It's always a good conversation with Shane Roberts. You can catch him on Block U. You got to get up to speed on Utah football. I want to remind everyone that we've got an offer that goes to a worthy cause. We've explained it elsewhere. The hashtag is Sam Strong. If you go to the link in the description section below, grab that link. You don't get the 50% that we show on the screen here added to your account at betnow.eu. You get 100%. So you double your money out of the gate. You get ahead of the betting game, and maybe you throw a few bucks on the Utah game against BYU this Thursday. We'll have our picks out, of course, later this week. Shane Roberts on the line from Block U. Let's talk defense. Number 1 against the run in the Pac-12, number 2 overall. That's pretty much almost a staple, maybe not to that level every year, but it's the kind of defensive effort that we've grown accustomed to with a solid front 4. You do lose the 2 linebackers, which is key. They were so productive. Some of the best defensive backs in the Pac-12. Set us up on defense, Shane.
Yeah, of course, it all starts up front. Defensive line. Coach Whittingham has said this might be the best defensive line he's ever had. It all starts with Bradley Anai at defensive end. He led the Pac-12 in sacks last year, and he was one of those NFL guys that we thought might leave. He's coming back. You also have Bleki Fotu, who is just a walking double or triple team at any given time. So pretty much the entire defensive line from last season returns. You did allude to the 2 departing linebackers, Cody Barton and Chase Hansen. So there's going to be some question marks there in terms of mostly depth. Manny Bowen actually transferred in from Penn State and was slated to be one of those starters, but he actually retired right before fall camp started, which really threw kind of a wrench in the plans at linebacker. He retired for some kind of business opportunity, he said. So there's some depth concerns there, but they still have Francis Bernard, who was a transfer from BYU, and he actually got a lot of really good reps last year, and they expect him to step in and contribute really well. The question is, can Devin Lloyd, the sophomore, kind of step in next to him and kind of fill those other shoes? He has all their measurables, and he kind of fits the billing, but he just doesn't have a whole lot of experience. But the coaches are high on him, but he's got to prove it in the games. And then the secondary is loaded. Julian Blackman, moving from corner to safety. That he approached the coaches about that after last year. And by all accounts, he is just made for that position, made for that role. Utah has a very long, great history of secondary players, including safety. So he should slide over there, kind of shut down the back end. And then Jalen Johnson, the corner, Utah's shutdown corner, he pretty much shuts down one side of the field at any given time. He might be one of the best corners in the country, if not the best corner in the country. This will be his last year at Utah. He's just a junior. He's a true junior, but he started since the moment he stepped on campus. And number 1, he'll lock down any corner on the field. So I would watch for him just to have an amazing season, potentially be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Actually, many scouts have said that almost every starter on this Utah defense will at least make an NFL camp next year.
It's an intriguing situation when you look at the talent on the team, the veteran presence at quarterback, the outstanding running back, the defense being as good as it typically is, and then the opportunity in the Pac-12. So on one hand, you don't get that marquee game to cause a big splash. I know the BYU game is enormous for other reasons, but in regards to a national splash, but on the other hand, the Pac-12 is tough enough. It's deep. I know people will argue no elite teams, but very deep. And maybe that provides an opportunity to really rack up the wins. And I know it's just all about controlling the division, winning the division, getting to the Pac-12 championship game, because those are tangible objectives versus some mythical college football playoff selection that we are still trying to figure out exactly the formula. But just your expectations, what is the fan base talking about? They probably are dreaming a little bit.
Yeah. I hate to say that it's Rose Bowl or bust, but it kind of is Rose Bowl or bust. I mean, the Utes were one freak interception away from winning the Pac-12 last year with a backup quarterback and a backup running back, and Britton Covey going down and all kinds of other injuries. So that's kind of the expectation around here for this season is the Pac-12 championship. So that's kind of what everybody's got their eye on. But then there's some national guys that are kind of throwing some kerosene on that fire a little bit. Lee Corso came out yesterday and actually picked the Utes to play the national championship game against Alabama this year, beating Clemson in a 2-3 matchup. And he's not the only guy that's thrown out the Utes as a college football playoff dark horse, which if you're a Pac-12 champion, I'm not so sure if you should be a dark horse in the college football playoff race. And it's funny, you look at the polls that have come out. The Pac-12 has 5 ranked teams in the polls, whereas I think only the SEC and maybe the Big Ten have more. The Big Ten the ACC had 2, and I think the Big 12 had like 3. So the Pac-12, it's deep, and I think that's the best way to put it. Is there an elite team? I guess we'll find out, but they don't necessarily have, the doorstops that are out there around the country. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night. It's kind of the Pac-12 after dark thing. So it can get crazy and it can get nuts, but yeah, it's for the Utes. It's win the Pac-12 South, and then let's at least go to Pasadena on New Year's Day.